Hey guys, today I'm going to give you a recipe that you can treat your pepper plants with that will cause literally explosive growth in your pepper plant and yield that you will not believe. But rather than just take my word for it, I'm going to take you out to the vegetable garden right outside the greenhouse, and I'm going to show you how many pepper plants are currently growing. They've been harvested multiple times this year. We're at the end of the growing season, about a month from our first frost, and I'm going to show you what this simple recipe, you can put this together with common kitchen items and you will see an amazing result with any type of pepper you're growing. So let's head out to the garden and I'll show you exactly what my pepper plants are currently doing. Hey guys, so this is just one of my 4x8 beds, and these pepper plants, there's about 10 pepper plants in here and they are just loaded with peppers. I can't even consume them all or give them away. And so as you can see, the peppers are actually breaking the limbs. There's a couple of broken limbs from the excessive weight of the peppers, but there's probably well over 100 peppers on this particular bed, and I can't even consume them all. I'm actually having to throw some of them away or use them in the compost bin. So this is proof of what I'm telling you as far as how well this recipe works. So let's go ahead back into the greenhouse and I'll show you exactly how to make it and apply it to your pepper plants. So guys, a lot of this recipe, you probably already had most of the ingredients in your kitchen, and most people don't even think about using this on their peppers, but if you combine all these together, you'll get some incredible results. And as you can see, I have a variety of peppers: red peppers, bell peppers, Japanese peppers, even this one, which has become one of my favorites. This is called a jalapeno, which is the opposite of a jalapeno. Even in the same family, looks exactly like a jalapeno, but there's no heat in it. So it makes it great if you don't like extremely hot peppers. Put cream cheese in it or just bake it in the oven and you'll really like it. Add it to nachos and it's really great if you're not into the spicy jalapeno. But let's get started on putting the recipe together. Super easy and you'll see results. I've had more peppers this year than I've ever had before, and I can't even give them away. So like I said, I'm having to compost a lot of the peppers back into the garden. So the first ingredient is going to require you to create it yourself, or you can order it online, is wood ash. And this is wood ash I ordered from Amazon a while back, but I literally have many 5-gallon buckets of wood ash I've created myself. One thing I will tell you, you're going to need to make sure you collect the wood ash before rain, because once it rains, a lot of the things in the wood ash will leach back into the soil. So a lot of the nutrients, minerals, and things like that will be washed away. So make sure you collect it. Once it's cooled down, you can put it in a bucket like this, or if it's completely cooled, maybe a 24-hour period later, you can put it in a 5-gallon bucket and keep it somewhere where you can add it to this recipe. Doesn't take a lot. It only takes about 2 tablespoons. So the first ingredient is going to be 2 tablespoons of wood ash. And when comparing the smaller pieces of limbs and things like that, you get more minerals in the smaller twigs and things like that. So rather than burning a very large part of the tree, opt to burn the smaller twigs and ends of the tree. Or if you want to order it online, I'll put a link in the description to some wood ash if you had issues burning in your neighborhood. Now, I forgot to mention, the wood ash will promote flowering and fruiting. So just remember, this is a really critical ingredient, and if you can't make it yourself, again, order you some online. You might be able to find it at a local hardware store, but it's a little bit harder to find, so I'd recommend ordering it online if you search 1 or 2 places and you can't find it, and it's a little bit cheaper sometimes to get it online rather than the big box store. Now the next product is going to be Epsom salt, which is magnesium sulfate, and you want to do 1 tablespoon in this mixture, and this will also help promote chlorophyll production, and it will also improve the overall flavor of your pepper. So sometimes peppers, if they don't have the right nutrients in the soil, the peppers can be kind of bland. So this can really help with the overall taste of your peppers. Now this next ingredient is very common in a lot of people's kitchens, and that's just common active dry yeast. It's in kind of a powder form. You want to do 1 teaspoon of this in your garden. This is going to promote the microbes in the soil and the hormones for growth. So just remember, this is a critical component. I made videos before about dry yeast, and it's really something you want to use not only in your vegetable garden, but you can use it in your ornamental garden as well. So to get these kind of results, active dry yeast is going to be critical. As I said, 1 teaspoon in this recipe. So the next thing we need to do is we need to feed the yeast in our recipe, and you're going to need to add this to the yeast 24 hours before you get started making the recipe. So you want to take 1 gallon of warm water, add the yeast first, and then add in 1 tablespoon of your sugar, whether it's a honey, maple syrup, molasses, or even cane sugar. I would prefer using something that's natural rather than some of the highly processed sugars. So I actually like maple syrup, molasses, and honey the best. But if I don't have any of those on hand, I can always switch to cane syrup. cane sugar, because I often have that in the pantry stored away somewhere. Now the next thing we're going to add is 2 tablespoons of fish fertilizer, and this has a very strong odor, so I will warn you that if you're adverse to really strong odors, you might want to make your own compost tea, and that might be a little bit more acceptable to you. I'll put a link at the top to making compost tea, but you're going to need 2 tablespoons of this in our 1 gallon mixture. Of course, if you're going to do multiple gallons, just quadruple the size or triple it depending on how many gallons you're actually making. So the fish fertilizer will help with stem growth and leaf production. So just remember, this is also a critical component, is our fish fertilizer or our fish emulsion. Now this next ingredient is going to help with blossom end rot, and that's when the end of your tomatoes, your peppers, or something like that has a black spot on it, and it looks like something is terribly wrong with your plant, but usually it's a lack of calcium in the soil. So I usually recommend either creating your own mixture here with crushed eggshells, put it in a blender and get it into a powder, or you can also use oyster shell crushed powder. You can buy this online. I'll put a link in the description to this as well. So we're trying to prevent a problem before it actually happens to our pepper plants by putting this into our mixture, and that will help with blossom end rot. So guys, you need to start with 1 gallon of slightly warm water, and we add our yeast to the water and our sugar base to it, and let that sit for about 2 hours. And if you can let it sit overnight, that's even better. If you have a seed heating mat, and I've got one of those around the greenhouse, I'll put a link in the description, but that can put very gentle heat to the bottom of your water container, and it can actually make the microbes in your mixture grow much, much faster. So just remember, the longer you wait, about 8 to 12 hours, it's going to really work even better. But you could do it in as little as 2 hours, and that's our first ingredient that we're going to be adding to our lukewarm, very slightly warm water. Not hot, because you can mess up the whole recipe by using hot water. Now I let this gallon-sized container in my garage to sit overnight where it wouldn't get too hot or anything like that. So the greenhouse during the day gets extremely hot, so I don't want this to get overheated. So I just put it in a cool, dark spot in the greenhouse, in the garage, covered it with a towel, and let it do that overnight. And then after doing that, I added the rest of the ingredients. So we want to make sure that we allow the yeast to do the thing they need to do, and that's multiply and grow. Once you've added everything else, now remember you did the yeast and the sugar first in the warm water, and now we added the rest of the ingredient. You can let it sit for another 12 to 24 hours to make it even more potent, but you could use it in this state once you've allowed the yeast to activate and become very, very productive in our liquid here. Now I left a little important detail out there, so I want to bring that up right now, is you don't want to use tap water, because tap water contains a lot of chlorines and other chemicals. So you want to make sure that it is either captured rainwater or you ran it through a very, very good filtration system in your home. So just make sure there's no chlorine in the water, because then the entire thing can fail, the yeast won't grow. And another thing I'm going to mention is you can do this in 2 different ways. You can put it in a sprayer like this and do foliar feeding, and you can also pour it at the base of each plant after you've planted it. So just remember, either way, but one thing you need to do is if it's too much debris in there and you don't want to clog up your filter, use a cheesecloth or a very fine strainer, t-shirt, anything like that, to remove any larger particles before you put it into your sprayer, because that can be a little bit of an issue when you're trying to misspray the leaves, and it won't harm it at all. It'll still be just as effective. You're not filtering out anything important. You're just filtering out the clumping or anything that might be too large to get through your filter. And so these solo sprayers, I recommend these all the time. I think I have like 3 or 4 just in the greenhouse alone, and I use these all the time. So I'll put a link in the description to these as well. But these are great for foliar feeding of anything, tomatoes, cucumbers, and especially peppers. Now, based on the previous videos I did about other recipes I have, there's always 2 questions that always pop up, and that's application rate and frequency. So in this particular concentrate, once you get it filtered, or even if it's pre-filtered, you need to take 1 cup of concentrate to 1 gallon of water, and the frequency on the base watering at the root level is about every 10 to 14 days, and maybe a little bit more frequently on the leaves. And remember, don't water them in the middle of the day when the sun is scorching. It could cause some leaf scorch or leaf curling. So just remember that base watering is probably better in the early stages of the plant, and once it becomes a little bit more mature, you can do some foliar feeding to speed up the growth and production of peppers. Now, the next few things are bonus tips in addition to this recipe, and this will help. This next thing we're going to talk about will provide extra phosphorus and potassium, and that is a banana peel tea. Take 2 or 3 banana peels, put them in your blender with about a cup of water, and purify it, or not purify it, but puree it down to where it's just a liquid, and then add that directly to about 1 gallon of water, and then go around your plants and just water that there. That will help once the flowering process has started. So you want to wait for the banana peel compost tea only once you're starting to see flowers on your pepper plant. Now the next thing I'm going to talk about for your pepper plants is adding worm castings, and you're going to top dress at the base of the plant in about a 6 to 8 inch diameter ring around the base there, and that will definitely help. You can do that about once a month, and if you don't have your own vermicomposter, I'll put a link in the description how to make one of those, but you can buy worm castings online. So in this particular bag, I ordered it from Amazon just to compare it to the worm castings I'm making in my vermicomposter, and they are really good as well. So if you don't have your own, you can order them online and just do that, like I said, once a month. Now I've got 2 final tips to make your production just super fast on your pepper plants. But before I do that, I want to talk about a PDF I've created. You can download it and you can keep it somewhere. Every time you grow peppers, just review it, and it will really help you by reviewing all these recipes, lots of extra tips, and even included in that is some mistakes that many people who are growing peppers do. So take a look at my Patreon. There's a link in the description. If you're a member of the Patreon, you can download that for free, or you can pay a few dollars and get it without becoming a member of Patreon. So either way, you can get that for very little. So anyways, let's move on to the last 2 tips. The last 2 tips are pruning your lower leaves on your pepper plant. That will focus the energy on fruit production rather than leaf production, because a lot of vegetable plants will go into full grow mode and won't be producing as much produce or vegetables as you would hope they would, because it's focusing too much on growth and not enough on flowering and producing fruit. So just remember, reducing that leaf in the bottom third of your pepper plants will make a huge difference. Another thing that I showed you in my 4x8 bed, they had gotten so many peppers on it that actually broke the branches, and now those 2 branches are going to have to be pruned, and the peppers are a little bit wilted. So that's one thing you want to do, is you want to stake and cage your pepper plants. You don't think they're going to get that heavy, but when you start getting a lot of peppers, that branch can't support all that weight and eventually breaks. So make sure that you stake, cage, or even run some strings up to a trellis. I've got a forever trellis. I'll put a link up above to that as well, that you can make, and it will last forever. So you only have to make it once, and it will last in your vegetable garden literally for decades. So guys, if you love growing peppers as much as I do, just follow the recipe and you'll be amazed by the results. And if you've never grown peppers, it's really easy. Just a lot of people fail because they don't know why. Their soil may not have the right nutrition amount, or one of these other issues I've talked about may be the problem. So just take a look at that PDF, and I think that will help you quite a bit in growing peppers, and you have a lot more success. So I really appreciate everyone who watches, and if you have a comment or question, I hope you'll become a public subscriber first. I put those comments and questions to the front of the line. So anybody who wants extra added content or some of these PDFs that I've talked about, some on my Patreon are actually free and some are actually sold as a PDF, so you can get it either way. So guys, I really appreciate you watching. Have a great day.